on this for sure. Have you played this game? For the 3 people in the room who've never heard of it before, is going kind of mad in social media and other places as well, where the birds are very angry because the pigs have stolen their eggs. And then there's a couple different versions where other birds are trapped by the pigs. And so the angry birds, as they are known, are out to destroy the foundations that the pigs have built to keep everyone in. So just in case you were wondering what Angry Birds was, but it seems like most everyone in the room has played it and is somewhat familiar with that. Is this thing working? Maybe not. There we go. It is moving along. So we're going to have Angry Birds throughout our theme today as we talk about managing angry people, as we talk about managing angry calls. And I want this to be a little bit more about the realities of what's going on as opposed to me standing up here and going through some long list of then say this and then say that. Because we all know every situation is very different. And when we look at normal customer service training, there's this long list of, if this person says this, say this. Or, if it's gone to this level, do this. And we'll have a few of those because I think there's some natural things that we should do in those realms. But I want you to understand a little bit more than just, okay, this is an angry call I have and this is what's going on. I want you to understand what's happening with the individual and what's happening with yourself whenever we get in those particular situations. And as I came in today, Vicki was telling me that she heard one of those calls today. So just a firm reality of what we have to deal with on a daily basis. So if I lose you because you're thinking about getting home, this is what I want you to catch. The session in the sentence is right here. People are prone to fear and anger, and when put in unfamiliar situations. But explanation, information, and empathy without succumbing to emotion ourselves may diffuse the situation, reduce the fear, and generate a feeling of goodwill. Right? So if you miss most of it, I want you to walk away with that reality. People get into an unfamiliar situation, they become afraid, and that is ultimately what builds the anger. So what we're going to be talking about today is physiology. Who can tell me what physiology is? Anyone take a wild guess? Stab?
The science of emotion.
That's very close, Wayne. I like that. Science of emotion. What else? Come on, let's cogitate out loud. Come on.
Body language.
Huh?
Body language.
Okay, yeah, body language would be wrapped up in physiology, absolutely.
The study of human behavior.
Yes, that's pretty right dead on. It is the branch of medical science that studies the functions of living organisms and their parts. Science has, we could get into a big philosophical conversation about this, but science has reduced us to biochemical mechanisms that respond in certain ways. I think there's a lot more to us than just that, but there is a reality about us as human beings and what we do and how we respond to particular situations. And in physiology, there is the study of how we respond to anger. So that is certainly a makeup of something that is within that science that I think we can point a fair finger to and say, this is generally what's going to happen, and this is the process we go through. So I want to talk about that from a scientific standpoint about what's happening on the phone with this person who's just going out of their gourd, who's lost their mind, it seems like, who's all of a sudden talking this loud into the phone, who's all of a sudden gone from this pleasant person, hi, I'm just calling to see about my claim, and at the other end, I'm going to kill you! Something has happened between here and there that causes them to get there. So we're going to talk about that. But not only just managing the call, but managing ourselves above all things. Because that's really what it's going to come down to. If the person on the other end of the phone has had some kind of trigger that has sent them into space, about the only thing that we're going to be able to control is what we do. We're not going to be able to control what they do. All right? This is moving slower than I expected. I apologize for that. So anger is a natural emotion created in fight or flight situations. And when a threat is sensed, the mind generates fear and anger. Right? So when you get in a particular situation, let's say you're in your car and you have pulled up to the grocery store, and as you're getting out of the car, let's just say we see 5 dudes coming at us, and they look like they are out for whatever it is we have in our hands, our purse, our wallet, whatever the case may be. Our mind starts running through a bunch of different scenarios. Probably what we find out most half the time is they go walking right past us and had no interest in us whatsoever, right? We've all formulated it in our mind already. We're on point, whatever the case may be. But what if we do perceive that there is a real threat? Well, we put ourselves in one of 2 situations. Fight or get away, right? Fight or flight. That's exactly what's happening. In most situations where someone has built up fear inside of them, that is where they are. They want to flee it or they want to fight it. Seldom do we want to, if we have 5 guys coming, hey, do you guys have an intent to steal my wallet? It's not what's going to be happening, right? We're processing it all up here. That's where it's all taking place. So, are threats real or imagined? Let's talk about that. Are threats real or imagined? Both.
Depends on the way it's perceived.
Right. Someone says imagined, depends on the way it's perceived. He says both. Any other answers to that? Are threats real or imagined?
I think it's what you just said originally when those guys were coming up to him and they just walked past him. He just imagined that they were going to be mean or.
So therefore, it wouldn't be a threat.
Threats are imagined.
So
Yeah.
it is.
Hasn't happened.
Okay. I'm going to go with the either, because they really can be imagined or real. 5 people may be coming at us, and it may be a real threat. They may have an intent of taking what I have, right? Is that a real threat? Yeah, sure, it's real. Or it may not be real. 5 people are coming at me. They have no intent of messing with me, but my mind goes and drives to the worst case scenario, and I'm already putting myself in a fight or flight situation. So when people are on the phone with you, their issues, I would probably argue most of the time are what?
Imagined.
They're imagined, right? Are their fears real? Well, they may actually come against some real fears, right? If you are a customer service person, you're on the phone with somebody who has not made their payment, their policy has canceled, and they want to make a claim, right? And they haven't told you about the claim at this point. They're trying to figure out how they're going to make the payment, get the policy in force. You've walked them down a scenario of, sure, I'm going to need you to go back into your agent's office. You're going to need to make this payment. We're going to need to take a picture of your car. What happens in their mind? We're done! Right? So they have taken their problem. Imagine the worst case scenario is going to happen here, which is I have a claim that's not going to get paid for because of what I did. But where are they going to throw that? They're going to throw it at you. If you're dealing with somebody on the phone that's a claimant, and you have a case where you have to let them know that the claim has been denied because the driver of the policy is a 515A driver, well, they're imagining all kinds of things in their mind. It's actually probably a real threat for them, because now they have a vehicle that's damaged or someone that's injured that is not going to get paid for by us nonetheless. It may be even more of a real threat because they don't have insurance in place, and now they have their irresponsibility that they have to take on themselves. But nonetheless, that is going to get amplified and is going to grow very quickly in dealing with what we have on the phone. So yes, they can be real, and they can certainly be imagined. And people, especially I think our customer service team, when it comes to people not making payments, can certainly hear the imagined ones more than anything else, right? They come up with some creative story. I hear the giggles, right? My dog ate it. You know, I couldn't get away. I was on a trip and didn't get my payments done. And so all of a sudden, you know, their problem, which is not a real problem that can be taken care of. They've imagined it worse than it is, and they want to throw it at us. So, what are some other situations that our insureds or claimants might perceive as a real problem for them, a threat? Give me some ideas. You deal with them every day. What do they perceive as a threat? Non-renewal? Is the non-renewal a real or imagined threat? Yeah, it's a real one. Okay, what else?
More time to make a payment.
Need more time to make a payment? Yeah, they're imagining.
Upright.
Is there coverage?
Upright is a real threat to them. Yes, what?
Is there coverage?
Is there coverage? Yeah. What else?
BI could be reducing.
What's that?
The BI role could be reducing medical bills.
Yes, yes. Getting back to reality. That can be a threat.
Paying for the damages on their car they're trying to claim that was on them when they wrote the policy.
Yes. Prior damage. That's called lying to us. That's a threat to us. And it's real. Any others?
Being taken advantage of.
They're afraid of being taken advantage of. Yeah. Because what does the TV say about us insurance companies? Yeah. Every one of this room is a bad person. When I told my father I was going to insurance, he went. Had me ranked up there with a car salesman instantly for some reason. I mean, which is a shame. I mean, that has been done to us by trial lawyers more than anything else, because we provide an incredible service, as I've said before in other meetings, and I want to reiterate, because you have an incredible calling here, and what you do every day is people give us this much money, and if something bad happens, we give them this much money. Does that sound like what bad people do? We're bad when we don't want to replace the prior damage as well. I've been paying this the whole time. Actually, you should fix this too. Yeah. Yes, you're $35 a month for the last 4 months. Absolutely. Well, there are some real threats that happen to people. They have some situations they come up against with us that are certainly real, and there are some that they certainly perceive or they amplify way beyond the reality of what they should be. But those are things that we need to remember. The last thing we want someone to do is to stew over those things, right? What is to stew over it? It's to be pondering it, thinking about it, troubling about it. And the longer we give them to do that, the worse it can be for us when we finally get them on the phone. So here's one other thing, if you're going to remember it today, is this. A lack of communication builds the imagined threat every passing minute. If we have someone who's tried to get in touch with us and have this question about whether coverage is going to be enforced, or what are you going to do to get my car moved, or is this going to be in place, or can I make my payment? Every second we don't communicate with them, they are stewing about it. The anger is building because they are developing the threat in their mind. They don't have any answers yet. They don't know what you're going to say. You may say yes or no, but the longer we fail to communicate with them, the bigger that is going to grow right up here in the old noggin. And you guys know this is true for you and I as well. As I was preparing all of this and studying all this over the past few days, I wish that I'd had my lesson about 5 days ago, because I had my own situation where I stewed over something, I let it build, and I could have managed it completely different, right? That's the problem with being on a board of directors on a nonprofit. I don't recommend it to anyone. But the longer we let these people stew, the worse it gets. So we've got to communicate. Communication really is completely the key here. How we communicate, when we communicate, all that you'll see has a paramount effect of where they are going to go. And remember, we're dealing with physiology here. We're dealing with what's happening right here with them. That is what we're dealing with. Less about the event or the situation itself. So, threats real or imagined, but anger is real. The anger that we're dealing with that's happening in the mind is a real thing. It is a reaction to something else, obviously. And so whether it is a perceived threat or a real threat, the anger is always, always real.
So don't forget that. When you're talking to a person on the phone, dealing with a person, their anger is real. The situation is now us dealing with the anger and less about the situation. Obviously, what we do and how we explain the situation is going to matter what's happening with the anger. But the anger is a real deal thing. We've all been there. We've all felt it. We've all had those moments. You and I have had our times that we've jumped way on the crazy bus. Okay? Just maybe a few of you have escaped that. Congratulations if you have. But I know plenty of times I've jumped on the crazy bus. It's like, man, there's no way off of this thing. And that's the problem with jumping on the crazy bus sometime. And I'm going to take you through the process of anger, and you'll find that when you get to the end of the process, usually most people go, I jumped on the crazy bus. Right? They may not tell us they did, but they realize it. So let's talk about the process of anger. Let's understand exactly what this cycle is, because there's a cycle that people go through when they're angry. A bunch of smart scientists got together and put all this together. And what's amazing is when I went through this, and I just think about situations that I've dealt with, and I thought about times that I've been angry, and I look at the cycle and I go, yep, they got us figured out. There is a pattern that we go through. So let's talk about it. Stage 1. Wow, it's not see-through here, so that's not going to work very well. Anyway, trigger stage. An event sets off the anger reaction. That's where we are with the trigger stage. Something has happened that has caused me to become angry, that is building that stage of going through fear, or through flight or fight, right? There's an event that has happened. At this stage, it is still possible to calm the person down or to calm ourselves, because we're just getting started. I'm very disappointed that that's covered up. Let's go back here. As you can see, we're just now getting into our situation, right? So I haven't had a lot of time to stew. I haven't had a lot of time to process. I haven't had a lot of time to run through what the worst case scenario is and how this is going to end out at this point. I'm just aware that something is making me angry. And we, on our side, usually can generally note that the person all of a sudden has turned into Miss Nice Betty who called us, into Betty who doesn't like my answer and is being very quiet all of a sudden, or is being very loud all of a sudden. People react to anger, of course, in a variety of ways, how they show it. Does anyone have anyone that ever just went and started making crazy noises? No? Come on, somebody's got a story about that. Yeah, I knew somebody.
Everybody here does, because I hear it.
But tell me about the lady. She did what?
She was talking so loud and so fast, it began to sound like she was barking.
That's funny.
The words were together, it sounded like a dog. Let it go.
Yeah? Has anyone ever been on the call where they go, you just got to hold on a minute, and they just set the phone down just to catch their breath? Has that ever happened to you?
Not catching my breath.
Not catching their breath. Hyperventilating. Well, all signs that we may have had a trigger, right? Something is, we've told them something, and that something has now put them in a fight or flight situation. No, I'm sorry, I can't reinstate your policy. No, I'm sorry, your credit card didn't go through. I mean, we all, whether our credit cards are good or not, we've had that time where, you know, you're in the line and they run your credit card. I'm sorry. What's wrong? What am I going to do? All these people are standing in line. Everyone thinks I don't make my bill payments. I look like an idiot. Run it again! Right? I'm just going to leave all this stuff here and run out. Or I'm going to argue with them and tell them why they're wrong. Not American Express, right? We're self-interpreting the situation this time. So as we're beginning to build, as we have the trigger happen, we're beginning to develop scenarios in our mind. So we've got to help the person get past that if we possibly can. This is when we have the knot in the stomach. This is where we start clenching. Maybe we start sweating. The pressure begins to increase. And there's a release of adrenaline. And I know we've all felt that release of adrenaline. I was on my elliptical at 24 Hour Fitness over here last Monday or Tuesday. And I just checked my heart rate. It was at 150. I'd been on the elliptical for about 20 minutes. And as many of you know, I jog and text at the same time as why I busted my face 3 weeks ago. And I'm still probably going to lose this tooth right here. But I was on the elliptical, and I, of course, was reading you. I go, there's no mailboxes. I'll be okay. So I read this particular email, which had to do with my situation last week, and it just went all over me. It was an immediate trigger. And here I was on this elliptical, and I checked my heart rate again. It went to 180. Just like that. There's a natural reaction the body has when the mind perceives it to be a threat. And I'm telling you, there was no real threat. No one was going to die. The situation already passed. I just didn't like it. It made me angry, and I wanted to fight about it. And so I start fighting in my mind instantly. The adrenaline's released, the heart rate goes up. We have to realize something physically is happening with the person on the other end of the phone when they are in an anger situation. So don't forget that about what's going on with them. It's a human person. It is just things that happen to us, right? Whether real or not real, they happen. So the next stage is escalation. Now this thing's starting to go off the charts. The blood pressure is up. The realization of fight or flight has come completely into the mind. Scenarios are being worked out, right? There's less control of the individual. There's less control of ourselves. Because someone who's going into an anger situation is trying to basically drag us in with it. They're wanting us to usually feel whatever emotion they have. That's why the language changes. That's why the tone changes. That's why the breathing changes. That's why the frustration is clear, because they want us to know that's where they are, and they want us to hang up or put up our dukes as well. So we've got to know what's going on with us too. Because when we are growing and watching their anger grow, it's causing the same thing to happen to us. Whether we like it or not. Whether we want to pretend like we're Walt Disney every day and that we could just waltz through there with our Mickey Mouse ears on. It's not reality. These things happen and people draw us into their emotion. And they draw us into their threats, whether real or perceived. So we've got to know that that's happening to us too. So then we're in the crisis phase. This is where there is going to be a fight or there is going to be a flight, right? So there's the reaction, there's the outburst, there's removal, hanging up the phone, right? There's the physical responses, there's the getting louder. You probably can't see, but I imagine many times it's kicking the counter or pounding their fist. Maybe heard pounding of the fist before. There's little chance of calming somebody when we get to crisis stage. Very little chance of calming somebody. It's probably going to go south. So the question is, how are we going to respond? We'll talk about that here in a second. Then, after our crisis happens, I've slammed down the phone, or I put up my dukes, and I'm yelling and I'm screaming. We have plateau or recovery. One of the two are going to start happening. I may get angry again as I go through this process. The timeline varies just based on the threat, based on the individual. During this timeline, there may be additional outbursts. And forgive me again for this not being, it's a word I cannot find that starts with a TR. It's, thank you. I'm Glenn Campbell. These three things. On this timeline, transparent, I could not find it. Did you hear me earlier? I couldn't find the word. I was like, it's opaque? I don't know what it was. If you look at this thing, it's doing like this, because as I'm going through this plateau and recovery, it's easy for me to get angry again about it, right? If I'm angry on the phone with you, I'm not happy about how this claim's going, the first thing I do is I slam the phone down if I'm going to flight from it, and then the next thing I do is call someone else. Right? So maybe I call my spouse, or maybe I call someone, talk to somebody next to me at work, whatever the case may be, and then I go through the scenario with my interpretation of the scenario, and then what do they help me do? They help me get angry all over again. So, It's good when you have people around you who are not looking to be angry with you. It's not very helpful. That's what I really appreciate about a number of my friends. They go, "You're just being stupid about it. Why don't you stop?" Those are the kind of people you want to have around you. So this can cause everything to kind of plateau out for a while and maybe spike. But overall, I'm getting past the crisis time. I've either fought you on the phone, or I'm still fighting you on the phone, or I'm getting quiet. You know, we have to identify, are they calming down now? Are they listening to what we're saying now? Where are we? Has this plateaued? Did they finally get out what they wanted to get out? That you only can interpret that as you're going through the phone call. And we'll talk about what we do in our plateau and recovery time as well. And then we have our post-crisis depression. Okay? So recovery and resting from a high state of arousal, the ability to think clearly begins to return. This takes some people much longer than others. But if you look at the cycle of anger, it's real and so in almost every anger situation, I think. And some of them go on for a much longer period of time. You may have someone in your family that you've had a major collision with. And every time you go to a family reunion, the second you see that person, what happens? You're back to whatever that event was 5 years ago, as if it was happening right then. I mean, it is not like any time has passed. I had a deal when I was back in the radio industry. We had this big production that we did that included all these artists coming into South Fork Ranch, and tens of thousands of people out there for the day, and I was responsible for executing this event. And I'll never forget, I had start telling tales now. I won't tell the artist, but their stage manager. Their stage manager did not like the way I had done something. And so he came up, and I mean, before I had a chance for him to say, "Hey, I'm wondering, could you fix this problem for me?" He's screaming obscenities in my face. I mean, just loudly, just right here, right? It was a Christian concert, by the way. So this person is in my face screaming obscenities at me. I don't even know what their perceived problem is right now that they are threatened by, that they want to fight about. He's just screaming at me. So we finally solved the problem. It was very easy to do. I turned to one of the interns and said, "Do you mind going to Home Depot and getting what this man is asking for?" And he goes, "I'm right on it." I go, "There." But whenever I think back to that day and I think back to that moment, my heart about beat out of my chest. I mean, if I just start thinking about it, because it was just an unbelievable amplified event. Right? So that can cause this thing to last. And right here in this plateau of recovery, we can actually hit back into that again. And then you come out and you go, "That's stupid. That happened 15, 16 years ago. Why am I thinking about such a thing?" Right? So then we go back into the depressing part that it's human nature and go, "I'm an idiot. I just need to move on." Right? So this is the cycle. I think that when we talk about physiology and the study of anger, this is a pretty good cycle to believe this is what's going on with the people we're dealing with. This is what's going on with us. I think it's important for us to know this about ourselves and about others. So, just take the triggers, right? The pig stole our eggs, right? So I'm ready to fling angry birds at them and destroy their foundations. Escalation phase. Right? I'm perceiving this threat. I'm wondering what to do about it. I'm amplifying it in my mind. I'm now at a crisis phase. I'm really throwing some serious angry birds at it. I am going to fight. I might flight. I'm not sure. I got to figure out which one, but then I respond and I react. What's that?
The angry bird is the one that does crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's the one that actually does the backwards, right? And then the plateau of recovery, I may get angry again, but I'm working it out. I'm starting to process through. And then I get to my post-crisis depression, where I just go, "Man, I could have done that differently." And I would imagine with an angry person on the phone who's trying to make us angry as well, who wants to take us into their emotion, that when we get to the end of most of these calls and we start thinking about it, that's probably the place we end up as well. Right? Whether we were right or they were wrong or there just was no real way for me to solve the problem, we still don't feel good at the end of that. You can't hang up the phone and feel good and get on to the next call automatically and go, "Hello." It's hard to do, isn't it? Let's be real. Right? saying. I know what all the trainers say. But smile on your face when you're talking like this, right? It's very hard to do. Because we're human, right? We're not machines. Lots of laughter, I'm glad. So we've got to understand our own reactions in these events. Where can we be mostly effective? Well, as we realize someone's going through this cycle, they're going to get angry, and we know that this is the cycle they're going to go through, we know that we can have the most effect here and the most effect here. Right? We have the best chance of rescuing the situation on this cycle as it begins to escalate. But I'm going to actually argue something that the physiologist did not add to this, and that is the best place for us to attack this is where? Before the trigger ever happens. To avoid a trigger if we can, or to try and explain what's happening so that a trigger can be avoided. That's really the best place for us to start. Because when they do get angry, and people are going to get angry, I mean, it's just how it's going to be. If we get into the cycle, though, this is the best place we had to recover, and this is the best place we had to recover as well. Once they finally calm through it, calm down. So, pre-trigger. Prevention is better than a cure. I had a video clip I wanted to show here. I don't know if anyone's ever seen Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yes.
Anyone seen that? Okay, a few people. It's a story in Savannah, which I'm a Georgia boy, so I like that. But anyway, character John Kelso, his door's knocked on, and a lady, local Savannian, comes in, and she's looking for some ice for a party that's going on until the middle of the night. And she said, "Would you like a drink, John Kelso?" And he says, "No." And she said, "Well, if you get a drink, you'll prevent it." And I think prevention is better than a cure. So I think prevention is always better than a cure as well. If we can prevent someone getting escalated, ending up going through the cycle, we can stop the cycle before it begins, that's our best place. And that requires a lot of work. Who's ready to eat that frog? Anyone? Yeah? One? Good. Brian Tracy wrote the book, Eat That Frog. This is a quote from Mark Twain. John Wayne. Mark Twain. If you eat a frog first thing in the morning, the rest of your day will be wonderful. Right? The best thing you can do is get the worst thing of the day out of the way. But what we do, because we're human, is we want to take the worst thing and put it off as long as we can, which causes people to stew. Right? We know we have a call that we need to make, and we have to deliver bad news. We have a call to an agent that we have to make, and we know the agent's not going to like our answer, right? Because we're not going to reinstate the policy, or there's not going to be coverage for this because of the realities of what happened. And then, of course, on the claim side, you guys have to deal with it so much, where you're going to have to deliver a piece of news to somebody that they're not going to be happy about hearing. You know the best thing you can do? If you know you've got those, get them done, and get them out of the way. Eat the frog. I mean, you guys know, generally, those calls are not going to do so well for you. You're not going to feel good when you get off the call. So let's just get them done, get them out of the way best we can. It's kind of hard to do in our case scenario because things happen throughout the day. But if you know you have something, and you know there's potential something could be stewing, get it done. Get it handled. Face the frog and... Some kid really had to do that. That's not photoshopped. So, pre-trigger. The prevention's better than a cure. We want patient and clear explanations. Patient and clear explanations. This stuff is old hat to us. We're dealing with it all the time. We get it. Don't forget that the person on the other end of the phone does not deal with this all the time. This is not their life. They don't know what 25, 50, 25 limits are. I'm sorry, it says 30, 60, 25 now, isn't it? I'd like to live in the past. That was better. They don't understand those things. They don't know what 515A means. They don't know what an undisclosed driver is. They don't know what an OACM 003 or OACM 13 is. They don't know what you mean when you talk about reinstatement or what's required to go along with that. Those things don't make sense to them. If we want to prevent a trigger, then being clear and being patient with the person is the best way to avoid a trigger altogether. Tone may prevent a trigger, or it may induce. and curt is the worst. If we're short, you are going to trigger. That curt attitude, that unhelpful attitude is a trigger, right? If you're being patient, if you're being clear, you may avoid any trigger whatsoever. If your tone is, we all know what a tone is of being helpful. Hey, listen, let me do my best. I want you to help you understand this, or I want to help you through this. You know, I know that you don't deal with insurance every day like I do, and my goodness, you know, when I'm dealing with the cable company, I want someone who knows how the box works in my house. So, you know, let me kind of walk you through this. The more we can do that, the better, and the less we're going to have a person who gets amplified. The less chance that someone's going to send in a complaint later on, and that's the kind of things that we're trying to avoid. Tone is easily identifiable. When walking through all the offices here, I can pretty much tell very quickly where a call is. If you're talking like this with the person, I know there's a problem, right? And talking slow, just as it won't help someone who speaks French understand English, it's not going to help someone who's mad understand what you're saying, right? You're simply taking a tone and putting a tone forth that's going to just amplify the situation even more and send them to crisis. Yeah, and you guys know, you're listening as well. You know, oh, right? You can hear it, right? Which is probably not good. If you know that everyone around you can hear you, you're probably in the wrong tone. Because you're speaking louder. Is it going to make them any happier? I promise you. Matter of fact, you're talking more quietly is probably going to save the trigger getting worse or ending up in the crisis situation. And that's generally how we are as humans. When you're on a personal phone call, you don't talk like this! Hey, yeah, you know, can you pick up some milk? Right? If I'm lying, I'm dying. Tone matters. Tone can help us prevent a trigger, or tone can keep us from going into the crisis phase. Okay. Availability. As we talked about earlier, eat the frog. Being available or promptly returning phone calls, stop the stew. Right? Don't let them stew over it. Don't let them spin the ideas around. Don't let it ferment. Get to them as quickly as possible. Try and solve their problem as quickly as you can. Look to be helpful. Have a tone of being helpful. Hey, got your message? Just got off the last phone call. Wanted to make sure I got back as quickly as possible. What can I do for you? People just want to know you care. They just want to know you care. All I want to know when I go into Walmart is that the lady at the counter at least knows I'm there and there's just not stuff going down the thing, right? You know, but most of the time it's just like, It's like there's no human event going on here. So we need people to have some kind of interaction with us. And we need them to have it quickly, right off the base, set the tone for how this is going to go. If I'm not greeted when I walk into a place, it sets the tone. Right? I'm already on the defense. I've already started to escalate. And if somebody in the store then says, well, you're just going to have to give me a minute, now I've gone into crisis. Right? I'm ready to fight someone. Well, no, get the manager! Right? I've gone from, no, it's not only are you not going to help me, I'm going to be mad about it. Okay? We all laugh because we've all done it. Phrases matter. How may I help you? Let's see if we can find a solution. I'm not sure, but let's look at this together. Right? Those simple things make a difference in trying to avoid the trigger as well. And never forget, this is a person with physiological realities on the phone. Say that really fast twice. It is a person. It is a human being who's on the phone. And while physiology would like to take us and make us mechanical, biochemical beings that do things a certain way every time, there is a reality that it is a human, it is a person who's on that other end of the phone who has a problem or anger of a perceived or a real threat. And we have a responsibility as a fellow human being to help them solve the problem. In the same way that when you walk into a place and you're not getting the service you want and it causes you to get angry, don't forget that they're in that particular same situation. It's got nothing to necessarily do with you unless you've just agged it on. It has to do with their perception of what's going to happen and what they're doing with it in their mind. So please don't forget that. I don't want to turn this into a science, even though there's a science to it. We should never forget there's a human component in all of this. Also, don't forget that your responsibility is to educate as much as possible. Not speak down to, educate. Yes, Mr. Jones, but if you would just pay your bill on time, there's this piece of paper that comes once a month to your house. It has an amount on it, and there's an expectation that you pay, right? It's not going to get us anywhere. People have problems. People have real problems, and people have perceived problems as well. But nonetheless, people have problems. And if we can help keep that policy in force for someone who wants to follow a procedure, there's no reason for us not to try and do that for them, to help them out. If someone has a loss and there's a reality that loss is not going to get paid based on the realities of the policy and what it says, then we have a responsibility to educate them. They are just afraid of the situation. The next thing that the mind starts to go through is, how am I going to get to work? How am I going to pay for this? I didn't cause this to happen. Those are real things. And again, we can't solve everyone's problems, and we do not have a responsibility to solve that problem if our insured has taken something else upon themselves outside of the realm of their responsibilities to us. We can't necessarily feel bad about that, but we can feel bad for that person. We can't empathize with them. So, we get into trigger. We got to remember to listen patiently. The thing's already triggered off. They're already upset. We know about it. Be focused on that call. Do not be distracted. Be listening to what they're saying, because what they're saying is important for you to construct how you're going to respond to that. So listen to what they're telling you. If they're telling you things that make it very clear they don't understand what's going on, then be prepared to explain it. If they are just wanting to get angry, sometimes allowing them to vent is okay. Yes, sir, I know this is a very frustrating situation for you. I understand. I can imagine if I was in that situation, that would be pretty tough. And many times what we have a tendency to do is, if someone wants to get amplified, we want to just cut it short because it's irritating us. You know, one of the things that we do sometimes in life is, if someone starts swearing at us, we want to try and cut the call off. I don't know that's necessarily a good idea. Because most of us, if we're sitting around with most of our friends, and we're at the restaurant and somebody's telling us a story, that usually sometimes has colorful language in it as well, and we're not offended by that, are we? So what do? Let someone go through the cycle sometimes. If they've got this, and if they can kind of get a little bit of that venting out, maybe we can keep the thing from getting to crisis, because they're able to express that emotion, and we don't react to it, except to get quieter. I understand. I know this is some bad news. I know you'd like this to go a different way. I wish that there's something more we could do, but there's not. Okay? Don't interrupt. If they're going off, let them stop before you try and tell them how the cow chews the cud. Okay? If you start, you're bad. I've heard it walking through there. When they're done, there will be a couple of seconds of quiet, right? And then you'll be able to say, may I explain, or may I look at a different piece here, or let me find out here what part you don't understand. Actually, that's probably a bad way to phrase that, so don't use that.
Good segue.
Thank you, yeah. Let me tell you what you don't understand. That's not a good way to do it. You can say, as I have it here, let me make sure I understand what you're telling me. Okay? If you want to talk about you understanding, that's fine, but don't talk about them understanding. Here's what you don't get, right? That's not going to work. Again, empathy, you can use, right? What's that?
Listen here, pal.
Trigger. Again, as we have gone past the trigger, we can empathize when appropriate. Don't use you. This place blames on the caller. You need, you didn't, you whatever. Try and avoid that. Find another way to describe the situation without using you, because now you're pointing, it's like doing this to somebody. Right? Nobody likes to be pointed at. Unless there's something to apologize for, don't. Do not apologize for something that you did not do wrong. If there's no coverage in force, I'm sorry there's no coverage in force is not accurate. Understanding it, yes, I understand that you are disappointed because there's no coverage in force. But don't apologize for what you shouldn't apologize for. Apologize if you're a jerk to somebody. That's what you should apologize for. Apologize if you were wrong. But don't apologize outside of that. That's not necessarily very helpful. And it doesn't keep the person in the light of what the reality of the situation is. If you're apologizing for things that we did not do wrong, you know, a lot of people want you to automatically say, and a lot of customer service training and things like that will say, just offer an apology. I don't think so. I don't think so. Let's keep the situation where the situation is and the reality that it should be in, and not apologize just because someone doesn't like our answer. We should apologize if we take a long time calling back. I'm sorry, I was on the other line, it went very long, I wanted to get back to you as quickly as possible. That's okay. And then also be careful what you apologize for in the realm of we're dealing with the realities and systematic realities of insurance. If you apologize for something, you might become responsible for that. So be careful. It's important that we understand our business in those realms as well. Define solutions best you can once the trigger happens. If you can offer solutions, if you can see some solutions down the line, the faster you offer those solutions, the better. Sometimes there is no solution. Sometimes it just is what it is. That's not a good thing to say. Yes, Mr. So-and-so, I know you're disappointed about this. The policy does not cover that. This is the next best step. From here, I'm sorry, you might want to contact your insurance company and see what they can help with, but there is no coverage in force for this loss. Check for acceptance. Always check for acceptance, because if you can get them to accept the solutions that you've offered, especially in the customer service realm, then you probably diffuse the situation. How about you go to your agent's office and do this, this, and this? Would that work for you? Yeah, I think I can do that. Okay, fantastic. What else can I do for you today? Right, so you can bring them back down. Restate acceptance and restate next steps. Here's where we go from here. People just want to know that. It helps get them out of the flight or fight category when they know here's what's going to happen next, or here's what we can do next, or here's what you should do next, right? Without saying you. Crisis plateau. Well, relax and listen. We're in crisis mode here. They're going to fight. We don't need to. It's not going to do us any good to fight. There's nothing to really win by fighting, right? So just be Michael Jackson in that case. No one? No reference? Lover, not a fighter? No. Okay. He hasn't been gone that long. Come on. I'm getting old. When you're in the plateau, remember, they're doing like this. Right? They're headed towards recovery, but they can still get to fight very quickly. So if you can offer options, please do. But if you need to listen, just listen. Don't call them out. Don't tell them what they're doing. Don't tell them how they've gone into... I'm sorry, sir, you've gone into crisis mode. You and I will talk again when you hit your plateau. Because after this whole thing's over with, you're going to be depressed. Don't do that. Seek re-engagement best you can. Try and re-engage. Again, if you can empathize, empathize. Right? People want to know you're human as well. And I did put that on there, and I guess it's good to remember. Remember, someone's about to be sorry for what they did during the stage. That's generally going to happen. Okay? There's going to be regret at the end of this. Yours or theirs, I prefer it to be theirs, not yours. So, again, I want to say beyond physiology is this. It's a person of great value on the other end of the phone, just as valued as you and I. We are not more special than they are. We are not more important than they are. We are as equally important. They are as equally as important as we are. So please don't lose track of that. We have a tendency, especially when I've seen companies that deal in a non-standard world, to try and treat people as less than subhuman. That is not acceptable here. So please, never treat anyone as being subhuman. No matter their ridiculous reaction to a situation, their colorful language that is uncalled for, their ignorance about the situation, whatever it may be. Don't forget that. In life, different people acquire different skills and are built differently. Embrace learning the differences. Right? Your ability to manage a situation and someone else's ability to manage a situation are different. Your maturity levels are different. Your knowledge is different. If you want to read the books, you are who you are because of where you were when. That makes us all different. So don't forget that you have something to learn from the person on the other end of the phone as well. Even though they may be different from you, they may have a different skill set than you, they may respond differently than you, they may know more or less than you, whatever the case may be, don't forget that. Your attitude will ultimately define the outcome 95% of the time. You will control the outcome 95% of the time. If you have a lot of calls that end badly, you need to look at yourself, not the people we're talking to. Because 95% of the time, you generally can control where it's headed. If you are overly helpful, if you are overly available, which is hard to do, I understand, but best we can do, then generally that person is not going to have a trigger go off. Or if we have to deliver bad news, bad information, they're going to respond better to it because they believe that you empathize with what's going on and that you want to help them. And we do even want to help people when the answer is no. Dispelling anger, providing solutions, or graciously telling truth is paramount to all of our futures. How you deal with people on the phone affects all of us in this room as well. If you're driving customers away because you're not helpful or because you want to impugn your bad day upon them, that's not helping all of us. If you are not willing to look at where you are on the anger graph here and determine what you need to do next in the situation, and you're going to let yourself get amplified, you're affecting all of us here. Number one, we can hear you. And when you are in a crisis mode and I hear you, I go into a crisis mode as well, right? Because I don't want you to have to be in that situation. And then I get all worked up. And then I'm going to go take my anger out somewhere. It's going to be placed in the wrong places. So what you do and how you manage people on the other end is important to all of us here. If we have insured, we want to keep them insured. In most cases, that's very good for us to keep policies in force. It helps pay the bills and our paychecks and all that kind of stuff. So we don't want to lose clients because we can't manage them in a crisis situation. When it comes to our insureds in a claim situation, now that we're having to pay out a lot of money, it's kind of best if we keep them unless they hit some scale of expectation there's going to be multiple accidents. But if we look at the majority, this is an incident that happened in a scale of time, and if we can keep them in place, we might have the chance to get a little bit of our money back. Right? Not such a bad idea. Right? We need to keep those law of large numbers in place. If we have a claimant, I always like the ones where the claimant sends in the compliment. Right? The claimant has no attachment to us. They haven't paid us any money. They may have not known who we are until they've had to deal with this situation. But if they send something in and the claimant says, great experience, I'm going to move my business to you, win. As long as you didn't pay them $10,000 more for their car than you're supposed to. Those are winning situations. So managing anger is important. William Blake, a favorite author of mine, has this poem. I was angry with my friend, I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe, I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears, and I sunned it with my smiles and with soft deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole, In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. Do you get the gist of this poem? Our anger can really harm people. His foe is dead beneath the tree. So we have to be very cautious with this reality of human nature, this reality with people we're dealing with, this reality for ourselves as well. Because it's easy to let it get out of control and for it to basically bore an apple bright. And then it's just going to cause us more problems. And generally what I find with anger, especially when I'm the one overreacting to the situation, is I'm the one left with the post-depression. I'm the one left wishing I had done it differently. And that's the place we want to put our clients whenever they are getting angry. We obviously want to avoid them being angry, but there's sometimes it's not possible to do. They're just going to get amped up. But the last thing we want to do at the end of this is feel bad about our behavior and the way that we managed it. And for us to have to be depressed about it, because that doesn't make the next phone call go very well either. We're stuck with that. That's the realities of our physiology. It's tough for us to get over things real quickly, unless you have that personality type, and some of you may. I would like to have it where I just could turn off the don't care switch, but I don't have that. My brother got it. So when something happens, man, he can just close his mind to it instantly. Be in a big fight with him. Where are you headed? I don't know. I think I might go to the Caribbean for a while. What are you going to do there? I don't know. Get a job, hang out, get away from all this. So I think William Blake's poem is a good poem about the realities that can happen, and I want us to remember that. So that's the physiology behind it. That's the realities behind it. Recognize on your calls when you're headed into this cycle. Recognize where you are in the cycle, and be prepared to offer solutions throughout the cycle. Not to demean someone, not to raise yourself above them because you're being the better person, but to understand where both of you are and try and offer the right solutions to them. It's not always going to work. There's a percentage of the time, doesn't matter what you do. But if you're trying, if you're keeping your tone down, if you're working through solutions that are available, or you're trying to educate and help, you're generally going to avoid those. And that will help us avoid complaints coming up to managers, complaints going to the department, because most of the complaints that go to the department are on these type of things, where we've offered the reality, and they just don't like the reality, right? I don't mind necessarily getting those from the department, because I want to get things that are reality as opposed to things that we've caused, which I almost never see. But on the ones that we get, where it is something that we could not have controlled, my next question is, could we have explained it better? Could we have done a better job of helping them understand why this policy doesn't have a refund coming on it? Could we help them understand better what this 515A is all about? And those are the places we have to leave ourselves with. Can we help this person understand so that we kind of stop this here, we avoid any triggers, and reality is reality, and we can all move on?